Have you ever felt that the more you try to control life, the more exhausted you become? It's like the more you try to collect money, status, experiences, the more you have to protect, and the more afraid you become of losing it all. But what if I told you, true strength doesn't come from holding on. It comes from knowing when to let go. Would you believe that? A lot of us think spiritual practice can only begin when we have more free time, when life is stable, or when we find some peaceful retreat away from the noise. But the truth is, some of the best moments to practice mindfulness are when you're washing the dishes, driving your kid to school, or stuck in rush hour traffic. Peace isn't hiding in some distant mountain. It's already here, in these simple, overlooked moments. There's a quiet kind of suffering most of us carry. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it wears on the soul. It comes from clinging too tightly to certain identities we're proud of. I'm successful. I'm a good parent. I understand the Dharma. And yet, when we get too attached to these labels, they quietly become a burden. They box us in and steal the very freedom we long to keep. So, if you're feeling pressure right now, if life feels heavy, overwhelming, or uncertain, this video is here to offer a pause. Not to give up, but to help you see things more gently. Today, I want to share with you a deep teaching from Zenone, where even washing a bowl can be a doorway to freedom. Let's walk this path together. A path where letting go doesn't mean loss, but a gentle return to the peace that's already within you. 1. Compassion is a lighthouse, not a doormat. Have you ever felt drained from being the one who holds everything together? Always the helper, always the listener, always the one others lean on while no one seems to notice how tired you are inside? In this modern world where everyone feels the need to appear strong, compassion is often misunderstood. People think being compassionate means being soft, overly accommodating, always saying yes. That if you're truly compassionate, you're not supposed to get angry, say no, or feel overwhelmed. But that's not the compassion the Buddha spoke of. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha taught about the four immeasurables: loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity. And among them, compassion isn't weakness. True compassion doesn't mean letting others walk all over you. It doesn't mean shrinking yourself to please everyone. Real compassion is steady. It's calm. It's like a lighthouse in a storm shining its light, but never chasing after the boats. Over the years, I've worked with many adult practitioners, single mothers raising kids alone, husbands grieving the loss of a partner after decades of marriage, nurses, teachers, business owners, trying to stay grounded in a chaotic world. And there's something they all have in common. They give so much of themselves and often forget to include themselves in that compassion. They believe that saying no, setting boundaries, or even showing emotion somehow makes them less kind or less good. But back when I was living in a monastery, there was an elder monk who taught me something I've never forgotten. Every evening, he would walk slowly on a dusty red path lined with bamboo trees, whispering like nature's own chanting. One day, I asked him, "Venerable, how can I keep compassion alive in a world that's so rushed, so full of hurt?" He smiled and said quietly, "Compassion isn't about running around putting out everyone's fires. It's about keeping your own flame alive. When others are in chaos, if your heart stays calm, they'll feel it, even if you say nothing at all." I didn't fully understand back then, but after years of sitting with people in pain, I've come to see it clearly. People don't always need you to fix things. They need a safe space where they can just be. Compassion doesn't always mean rescuing someone from their storm. Sometimes it's just sitting quietly beside them. No advice, no judgment. Just being present like an old tree, solid and still, offering quiet shelter until the storm passes. That's why in Buddhism, presence is one of the most powerful acts of love. There's a viewer of this channel named Sarah who once shared a moment that stayed with me. She wrote, "One time, my father was having a panic attack. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just sat beside him, held his hand, breathed slowly, and looked into his eyes. I didn't say a word, but after 10 minutes he calmed down. No medication, no pep talks, just presence." Sarah isn't a trained therapist. She's simply someone who kept her heart steady. And that steadiness became the ground her father could lean on. That's what compassion really is. And here's the thing, when you're truly compassionate, you're healing yourself too. Because when you stop trying to do the right thing in everyone else's eyes and simply show up with an open heart, you stop feeling like you're sacrificing. You stop enduring. You start being. There's a quiet difference between putting up with someone and being with someone in unconditional love. And the moment you can sit beside another person without fixing, correcting, or needing them to be anyone else, you offer them something deeper than any advice. The feeling of being seen, accepted, and safe. And maybe right now, that's what you need too. Not someone to tell you what to do. Not someone to push you to be stronger. Just someone who lets you be you. And if that's true, then the first step is this. Be that person for yourself. Because before compassion can be shared, it has to be nurtured within your own heart. When your heart is full, you don't give to be recognized. You give because peace is already overflowing inside you. 2. The power of letting go. There's a simple truth that most people spend their whole lives avoiding. The tighter we hold on, the more anxious we become. We cling to all kinds of things or relationship that's run its course. An old title that no longer fits, a house full of memories but now empty. Even a version of ourselves we used to be or hoped to become. And the strange part is, even when those things no longer serve us, we still can't seem to let them go. Why? Because we've grown so used to calling them mine. I remember a middle-aged woman once sharing her story after a Dharma talk. She said, "I don't know who I am if I'm not his wife anymore. He's gone, but I still keep his room untouched, the same old shoes, the shirt he used to wear. Every day I sit there, like if I change nothing, maybe he's still here." And that's not wrong. That's love. That's grief. That's the human heart. But then her voice cracked, and she said something I'll never forget. "The hardest part isn't that he left. It's that I haven't allowed myself to keep living." In Buddhism, letting go doesn't mean throwing things away or pretending they didn't matter. It's not about being cold or avoiding responsibility. Letting go is about no longer identifying ourselves with what is no longer real. It's the gentle release of what has already left so that we can finally breathe again. In the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha said, "Whatever is not yours, let it go." Letting it go will bring long-lasting peace and happiness. But how do we know what's truly not ours? The answer doesn't always come from the mind. Sometimes it comes from the body, from a feeling deep inside. When something starts to tighten your chest, when you feel yourself straining to keep it, afraid to lose it, constantly planning, hiding, controlling, that's when you know you've drifted too far from freedom. Someone once asked, "How do I let go of something I love? A person I care about? A job I dreamed of? A home I spent my life building?" And the truth is, no one said it's easy. But maybe it's not the person or thing itself that brings pain. Maybe it's the inner voice whispering, "I must have this. I am this. I can't be anything else." That voice is the root of suffering. An old monk once said during a meditation retreat, "The tighter you grip, the more your hand aches. But when you open your hand, what's truly yours will stay. During a retreat in France, people from different countries were invited to share what was weighing them down. One older man who used to be the CEO of a major company stood up with tears in his eyes and said, "I've retired, but I can't find peace. Because in my mind, one question keeps echoing. If I'm not the CEO anymore, then who am I?" In Buddhism, this is called attachment to the self, to identity, to role, to image. And as long as we define ourselves by these labels, we live like someone carrying a heavy load on their back. Even after they've put the role down, even after life has moved on. True letting go doesn't happen with outer actions. It begins with a shift in perception. No more mine. No more I am this. No more clinging to an image just to prove that we exist. And when that shift happens, something beautiful unfolds. The heart becomes light. The mind softens. And peace returns without force, without effort. We don't have to try to let go. We just need to see clearly. When something no longer feels real, it no longer needs to be held. A Zen master once compared letting go to setting down an invisible backpack we've carried our entire lives without realizing it. It's filled with worries, identities, expectations, judgments, and we've worn it for so long we think it's part of our body. But the moment we set it down, nothing is lost. Only lightness remains, only space. And in that space, freedom begins to bloom. And here's the final point. Letting go isn't just about the past. It's also about what hasn't even happened yet. We can let go of the urge to control the future. Let go of expecting others to change. Let go of needing to become some perfect version of ourselves. Because the more tightly we hold, the more tense our hearts become. And when the heart is tense, wisdom cannot shine through. Just like the sky when the clouds clear, the sun reveals itself. Letting go isn't loss. It's the space that allows light to enter. 3. Learning to live in a mind-nourishing environment. There's something most of us do every day without even realizing it. We eat with our minds far more often than with our mouths. And I'm not just talking about breakfast or dinner. I'm talking about the social media we scroll through the moment we wake up, the flood of news headlines, the words people say that stay with us, the noise in our homes, even the emotional atmosphere at our workplace. All of it is food for the mind. Just like the body, the mind can get full. But unlike the body, when the mind is full, you don't feel sleepy. You feel anxious, restless, exhausted. You can't sleep. You get irritated more easily. You feel fragile, but you don't know why. An old monk once asked his student, "If you drink dirty water, your body gets sick. So what happens when, every day, you let your mind drink criticism, fear, comparison?" The student went silent. The monk continued, "We're so careful about what we feed our bodies, but we let our minds go hungry and swallow toxins all day long." Think about a typical day. You wake up, grab your phone. The first thing you see? Bad news, perfect people, messages that make you feel like you're falling behind, that you're not good enough, fast enough, successful enough. Then you go through your day surrounded by conversations that drain more than they fill. Complaints, criticism, gossip. And by evening, when your spirit is tired, you scroll through highlight reels of other people's lives, photos edited to show only their happiest moments. And you go to sleep feeling like you somehow lost a game, without knowing what the rules were. But here's the thing. That emptiness you feel, it's not because you're weak. It's because your mind has been quietly poisoned by the environment around you. In Buddhist teachings, we call these the four nutriments: edible food, sense impressions, volition, and consciousness. And the two that affect us most yet are least noticed are impressions and volition. That means the emotional tone and thoughts you take in each day. Your environment is a kind of nourishment. A bright, clean, quiet room can calm the mind. A cluttered, noisy, overstimulating space, it can make your thoughts spin without you even realizing it. I remember a man who once said he'd felt drained for years, not because of his job, but because of a constant sense of being pulled in every direction. After searching for answers, he made a simple change. He tidied his home, turned off his phone notifications, and every morning he sat quietly in front of his garden, not meditating in any formal way, just sitting, watching the trees, listening to birds, drinking his tea. 3 months later, he told me, "I finally feel human again." The problem for many people today isn't that they're not capable. It's that they don't have space to hear how they truly feel. And often, healing begins not by adding something new, but by taking something away. Less noise, less distraction, less contact with things that quietly stress us out. Here's a simple practice. After watching a video, after scrolling a page, after finishing a conversation, pause and ask yourself, how does my mind feel right now? If you feel lighter, more peaceful, that was nourishment. If you feel tense, comparing, anxious, maybe that was poison. And here's the most important part. You're allowed to choose again. No one can force you to watch what drains you. No one can make you stay in conversations full of judgment. No one can trap you in an environment that suffocates your spirit. It's just that most people forget they have that power. A young woman once asked during a meditation retreat, "How can I stop being affected by the negative energy at work?" The teacher didn't give a long answer. He just smiled and asked, "Can you keep a small flower pot on your desk? Can you bring a poem, a soft breath, a gentle song with you each day?" She smiled, and that was the beginning of her change. Your environment is not just what's outside of you. It's also what you carry inside. Your mind can be a dry desert or a small garden, one you water with silence, a morning reminder, a few deep breaths, or a line of kindness. Learn to live in an environment that nourishes your mind, not by escaping the world, but by choosing carefully what you feed your inner world each day. Start small. Turn off the alerts that jolt your nervous system. Unfollow content that makes you feel not enough. Play soft music instead of chaotic noise. Tidy one corner of your room. Say thank you instead of complaining. And take a few quiet minutes each day just to ask your heart what it really needs. Because just like the body, if the mind is fed toxic fuel without care, it too becomes sick. And no one else can live this life for you. No one else can choose the spiritual environment your soul truly deserves. 4. Happiness isn't in the future. It's in the cup of tea you're drinking. Someone once asked, "How do I find happiness?" It sounds like a simple question, but truthfully, most people spend their entire lives chasing the answer. Some think happiness will come the day they buy their first home. Others believe it'll happen when they find their soulmate, have children, or land that stable career. And then there are those always chasing a vague idea. When things finally calm down, when I become a better version of myself, then I'll be happy. But if happiness is always somewhere else, or sometime later, have you ever stopped to wonder, are you actually living or just waiting to live? There's a simple teaching in Zen. When drinking tea, just drink tea. Sounds obvious, right? But think about this. When was the last time you truly drank a cup of tea or coffee, felt the warmth spread through your mouth, smelled the soft aroma, noticed the temperature touching your hand? Or were you already somewhere else, lost in an unread email, a waiting message, or next week's to-do list? The Buddha once said, "The past is gone. The future has not yet come. The present moment is the only place life truly exists." Bhattakharata Sutta. So many people seek peace by changing their external world. A vacation, a new apartment, a different job. But once they return to everyday life, that old emptiness sneaks right back in. Because peace isn't about where you go. It's about how fully you show up to what's happening right now. There's a story of an elderly monk who once welcomed a young mother into a meditation retreat. She often arrived late, stepped out during sessions, and seemed distracted. Some other participants began to get irritated. But instead of criticizing her, the teacher invited her to speak. With tears in her eyes, she said, "I really want to practice, but I have a baby who cries a lot. I have to step outside so he doesn't disturb others. I feel like I'm failing, like I'm not good enough to practice like everyone else." The monk smiled and replied gently, "You are already meditating. Every step you take carrying your baby is a mindful step. Every breath you take while holding him is a sacred breath. Meditation doesn't require perfect silence. It's simply being present with the crying, the exhaustion, the love." From that day on, she no longer hid. She carried her baby, breathed with him, and found a peace not inside the meditation hall but in her own arms, amidst the reality of her everyday life. Sometimes, happiness is just simple. It's when you're washing dishes and notice the warmth of the water. It's when you pause on a busy street and hear the breeze moving through the trees. It's sitting next to someone you love, saying nothing, just being. It's eating dinner and not rushing through it. And the beautiful thing? You don't have to go far to find that happiness. You just have to come back to yourself. In Pali, the word satiwat we translate as mindfulness doesn't only mean awareness. It also means remembering to return to the present moment. Because a life without presence becomes a blur. A long string of days that slip by without us ever truly being there. There was once a layperson who shared that his life changed from one simple shift. He began washing the dishes as if it were the most important thing he'd do that day. No thoughts about what's next. No podcast playing. No phone in hand. Just washing. It felt silly at first, but eventually, something inside him softened. His breath became steadier. Time slowed down. And in that slowness, something amazing bloomed. A quiet joy that came not from anything outside, but from being completely here. No meditation hall needed. No bells. No rituals. Just you. And the moment that is. That's the true spirit of meditation. Not found in form, but in living fully. A crying baby can be a mindfulness bell. A car horn can call you back to your breath. A cold drink on a hot summer day can be a miracle. If you've been searching for happiness, maybe, just maybe, it's time to pause. Not to give up, but to truly see what's already here. A steaming cup of tea, sunlight on your hand, a quiet afternoon with nothing urgent to do. These moments aren't ordinary. They are the gateways to peace. And when you start living fully in these simple things, you'll begin to notice something else. The small movements inside your own heart, the old desires, the quiet resistance, even the roots of suffering you never knew how to name. But now, you'll be able to see them clearly, because you're finally home. 5. The 3 roots of suffering. craving, anger, and ignorance. There's a question many of us have whispered to ourselves, especially in the quiet of night. Why do I feel so tired even when everything seems fine? You've got a home, a job, a family, but inside, there's still this heaviness. Something feels missing. Like you're walking on a road where the finish line is always just ahead yet never in reach. In Buddhism, that feeling is called dukkha. It's not always sharp pain, it's more like a vague restlessness that quietly follows us through life. And the Buddha pointed it out so clearly. Suffering doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from 3 hidden roots buried deep within our own minds. In Pali, they're called tanha, dosa, and moha, translated simply as craving, aversion, and ignorance, or more traditionally, greed, hatred, and delusion. These are the 3 undercurrents that silently pull us along, and most of the time, we don't even realize they're there. Craving is that part of us that always wants things to be different. The weather, our emotions, the people around us, even ourselves. We want the coffee hotter, the kids more well-behaved, the spouse more understanding, life to go more smoothly, the future to come sooner. But what we often forget is this. The more we want things to be different, the further we drift from the moment we're in. There's a story from a monastery in France. One summer, the community received some new chairs, bright yellow, fresh, and fancier than the old white, black, and green ones. Nobody fought, nobody argued, but soon people started showing up to meals a bit earlier. One group quietly saved the yellow chairs for themselves. Another group looked slightly irritated when there were no comfortable ones left. The chair-simple objects suddenly became symbols of comparison and silent wanting. No one was wrong, but one thing was clear. The moment wanting enters, suffering begins. Even in a sacred space like a monastery, aversion shows up when things don't go the way we want. It's not always an outburst of rage. Sometimes it's just a sigh, a furrowed brow, a cold glance, a tight feeling inside when someone does something wrong, even something as small as putting a towel in the wrong place. One woman once shared that she constantly felt tense because her teenage daughter refused to clean her room. Every time she walked past the mess, anger flared up. She had tried yelling, silent treatments, even passive-aggressive guilt. None of it made her feel better, until one day, she stopped trying to fix her daughter and started looking at her own reaction. She realized the anger wasn't really about the room. It was about the feeling of losing control, the feeling that she wasn't being heard. That's the heart of aversion. When we don't get what we want, we resist reality. And you can't dissolve anger by forcing it away. It begins to fade only when you're awake enough to see it clearly and gently say, "Ah, this is my mind reacting. It doesn't want this moment." That's enough. No need to fix it. No need to suppress it. Just see it. Like how the sun doesn't need to be told to rise. It just appears when the clouds part. Delusion is not seeing clearly what's really happening inside us. It's when we live on autopilot, thinking every thought is true, believing every emotion is accurate, trusting every judgment as fact. Delusion is when we react without knowing why, when we hurt but can't name the pain, when we live but aren't really present. One father once opened up during a mindfulness retreat. He often yelled at his kids and always regretted it afterward, but he didn't know how to stop. After sitting in silence for a while, he finally saw it. Every time his kids made a mistake, he was pulled back to his own childhood, to a little boy who got scolded by his father. The fear of not being good enough came rushing in. He wasn't yelling at his kids. He was yelling at the wounded child inside himself. That's delusion. When we don't see the roots, we live in the shadows. But here's the beautiful part. The Buddha never told us to destroy these 3 roots by force. He simply said, see them clearly. That's it. Clarity is the beginning of freedom. See that you're wanting. See that you're resisting. See that you're lost in confusion. And smile at that. Just smile. Like sitting on the beach, watching the waves. You don't have to stop them. You just have to see them come and go. If left unseen, these 3 roots can quietly shape your entire life. But when you shine the light of mindfulness on them, they begin to lose their grip. A meditation master once said, it's not that you chase away the darkness. You simply light a lamp, and the darkness disappears on its own. And the amazing thing is, when you start noticing these roots in the small, everyday moments, when you're stuck in traffic, when someone misunderstands you, when dinner doesn't turn out the way you hoped, that's when you've already stepped onto the path of awakening. 6. True spirituality is not separate from daily life. There's a quiet, common belief many people carry that spiritual practice is for monks. For people who leave behind the world, live in the mountains, eat simply, chant sutras, and meditate under a quiet thatched roof. And because of that belief, so many think, I can't practice. I have a family, a job, responsibilities, a house, kids. But if that were true, wouldn't that mean most of humanity would never have the chance to touch peace? Thankfully, the Buddha never taught it that way. He didn't only teach monks in the forest. He taught kings in palaces, merchants in busy markets, wives caring for their husbands, mothers who had just given birth. He didn't create a separate, distant world for spirituality. He taught within life itself as it unfolds. A woman once asked a Zen teacher, Master, I want to practice, but I have 3 small children. I can't go to a temple. I cook, clean, run errands all day. I just want some quiet to meditate, but I never get that. The teacher smiled gently and said, Then begin with washing the dishes without complaining. Fold the clothes without thinking about tomorrow's work. Breathe with your childas if that breath is the most precious moment of your day. And he added, These small moments are the deepest path because they don't pull you away from life. They bring you fully into it. You see, you don't have to climb a mountain. You don't need a meditation hall far away. Stillness is something you can carry, even in the middle of traffic. A layperson once shared, every morning he would drive his kid to school and get stuck in a sea of cars. Horns blaring, people shouting, chaos outside the windows. At first, it made him anxious and irritated. But one day, he decided to try something different. He turned everything off. No music, no news, no scrolling. He just took a breath, felt his hands on the steering wheel, listened to his own breathing. That was it. And he realized the traffic wasn't the problem. It was his mind that was jammed. Spirituality, if it's not woven into life, becomes just an idea, not a path. But if you can drink a glass of water with full awareness, if you can listen to a loved one without judgment, if you can fold a blanket in the morning like it's a ritual of love, then you are practicing deeply, quietly, truthfully. A female practitioner once said to her teacher, Master, I see you walk so slowly, so beautifully, but I'm always rushing late for work, late to pick up my kids. How can I ever meditate like you? He asked her, Can you walk quickly but still know you're walking? She froze, then laughed, because suddenly it clicked. Practice isn't about going slow. It's about being aware whatever you're doing. You can practice mindfulness while doing the dishes. You can practice compassion while facing someone difficult. You can practice letting go in the middle of a busy day just by taking one conscious breath so you're not swept away. You don't have to become someone else to practice. You just have to become fully yourself in the most ordinary things. The Buddha once said, "A layperson, if living with mindfulness and understanding, can also reach liberation." Because spirituality isn't some lofty state to attain. It's a way of living honest, awake, and filled with love in each act you do. Someone once asked, "How many times should I chant sutras a day?" The master answered, "Let each act be a living sutra. Let every step, every meal, every moment of teaching your child be the way you chant the sacred verses of your life." And maybe that is the truest spirituality of all. Not stepping out of life, but stepping into it with presence, awareness, and compassion. 7. True wisdom isn't about knowing more. It's about seeing clearly. One of the biggest misconceptions people have when they begin exploring Buddhism is this. They think wisdom comes from reading a lot, studying hard, memorizing teachings, and filling their shelves with books. They can quote sutras. They've mastered Buddhist theory. But in daily life, one harsh word and anger flares up. One compliment, and the ego clings. One criticism, and suddenly there's insecurity, defensiveness, the need to fight back. And they wonder, I've studied so much. Why am I still suffering? Because wisdom doesn't come from how much you know. It comes from how deeply you can see. The Buddha once said, "Better than winning 1,000 battles is the one who conquers their own mind." And to truly see your own mind, you don't need 1,000 books. You just need one moment of awareness enough to notice what's really going on inside. Imagine this. You're sitting in a room. Outside, cars are passing, people talking, a fan spinning. But your mind is replaying yesterday's argument or worrying about tomorrow's meeting. Are you really here? Or are you living inside a story in your head? In Buddhism, wisdom means seeing the truth in the present moment. Not some lofty philosophical truth, but simple, raw truth, like, what's my mind doing right now? Am I clinging to something? Am I resisting? Am I judging? A young practitioner once said he had read over 50 books on Buddhism and listened to hundreds of Dharma talks. Then one day, while driving, another car suddenly cut him off. In a flash, he cursed out loud, heart pounding, hands tied on the wheel. And then he laughed, because in that moment, he realized all the knowledge in the world didn't stop that surge of anger. But becoming aware of it, that was the start of real wisdom. The Buddha never praised those who memorized every teaching. He praised those who could see impermanence, suffering, and non-self in the smallest experiences of life. There's a story from the sutras. A disciple asked the Buddha, "Master, if I can't memorize all the teachings, can I still walk the path?" And the Buddha replied, "If you can see that this breath ends is a breath in, and this breath out is a breath out, you have begun the path to liberation." Sounds simple, right? But how many of us are really there with our breath? When we eat, are we tasting our food? Or thinking about work? When we talk, are we listening? Or just waiting for our turn to speak? When we're in pain, do we feel it fully? Or rush to distract ourselves? Wisdom doesn't come from knowing about impermanence. It comes from seeing an emotion rise and fall right here, right now. Wisdom isn't understanding the theory of letting go. It's that moment you notice yourself clinging and you let go. One woman once shared she had studied meditation, psychology, and emotional regulation. But when her mother passed away, no book could teach her how to face that deep emptiness. And yet, as she sat beside her mother's photo, just breathing, feeling the grief without pushing it away, she finally saw. She saw that love doesn't disappear. She saw that pain comes and passes like a wave. She saw that life so fragile was shining in every moment. That was wisdom, not from outside, but from within when she faced reality without dressing it up. Sometimes, the more we learn, the harder it is to let go, because knowledge makes us believe we already know. But true clarity comes only when we stop labeling, stop analyzing, stop assuming. Wisdom is the ability to touch life directly, without filters, without ego, without old habits clouding our view. As one Zen teacher joked, Buddha's students are funny. When they get a headache, they say, "Ah, this is the dukkha aggregate." When they're anxious, they say, "My mind is caught in afflictions." But they forget the most important part: actually feeling it, without labels, without theories. And that's the real practice of wisdom. Not running from feelings, not applying a formula to every situation, but being alive to each moment so that our seeing becomes clear, honest, and free. 8. Letting go of identity. Taking off the mask of I am. There's something subtle that many of us don't realize. Suffering doesn't just come from what happens to us. It often comes from the image of ourselves that we tightly hold on to. No one forces us to wear a mask, we put it on ourselves. I'm a successful person. I'm responsible. I'm a good wife, a devoted father, someone with high values. These identities sound admirable. But if you look closely, every time someone questions that image, or when you feel like you're not living up to it, you feel pain, you feel insecure. Because deep down, you believe you are that label. One middle-aged man once shared after a meditation session, "I've spent my whole life trying to be the strong one, the man who never breaks. But when my mother died, I couldn't hold back the tears, and suddenly, I felt like a failure." But in that moment when he stopped trying to be anything and simply sat with his grief, something strange happened. He felt relief. No more need to prove. No more need to protect a public image. Just being honest with what's real. And that was the beginning of freedom. In Buddhism, the Buddha never labeled people as good or bad, pure or sinful. He saw clearly what was going on in the heart and taught how to let go of the clinging to self. This sense of I is a story the mind creates to feel safe in a world that's always changing. But ironically, that story becomes the source of our suffering, because life does change. Emotions shift, roles fade. Success comes and goes. Fame passes. A young practitioner once asked, "How do I let go of the self without losing who I am?" The answer isn't to erase yourself. It's to realize you don't need to hold on to any role to have worth. A mother doesn't need to be perfect to be loving. A teacher doesn't need to be right all the time to be respected. A monk doesn't need to be pure 100% of the time to walk the path. Because truth doesn't lie in the roles we play. It lies in our presence, our honesty, and our willingness to be real in every moment. In the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha said, "What is not yours, let it go." Letting go brings happiness and peace. Your identity? It's not really yours. It's a costume, a role, a temporary part in a play. And when the curtain falls scan, you take it off? Here's a real-life story. A woman had been a CEO for over 20 years. When she retired, she fell into depression. No one called her boss anymore. No emails, no decisions to make. She thought she was strong, but without the title, she felt empty. Then at a retreat, she began to learn all over again. She learned how to make tea without needing to get it right. She learned how to walk, slowly, not to get somewhere, but just to walk. She smiled not because she achieved something, but because she felt alive. And slowly, she realized, I'm still Mevan when I'm no one. Exactly. When you no longer have to be someone, when you don't need approval to feel worthy, when you're not afraid to lose your image, your mind becomes light as air. No more strain to uphold, no more fear to hide, no more pretending. And that's where real freedom begins. Because as the Buddha taught, the path to liberation isn't about affirming who you are. It's about seeing clearly that there's nothing you need to defend. No one can take away your inner freedom if you're not clinging to the mask of I am. And when the heart feels that lightness, you begin to hear life more clearly, even in the quietest, simplest moments. Because what's most precious isn't the image you build, it's the way you show up, fully and honestly, to this moment, just as it is. 9. Generating positive energy for the world through your own mindfulness. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt the energy there without anyone even saying a word? Sometimes it feels warm, light, and comforting. Other times, heavy and tense even though no one's shouting or upset. That's not your imagination. That's the subtle energy we each carry, your mental and emotional presence being felt, even in silence. Here's something beautiful that many people overlook. When someone holds true mindfulness, they are silently healing the space around them. I once met a retired doctor living alone in a small apartment in Boston. She didn't chant out loud or give Dharma talks or do anything the world might call extraordinary. But every morning, she'd sit quietly for 30 minutes, just breathing, just being present with her breath. Then she'd go to the market, thank the cashier with a soft smile, pick up trash that wasn't hers, and when someone got angry, she didn't react. She just smiled gently and stayed still. One neighbor told me, I don't know what it is, but every time I see her, I feel more at ease. It's like her presence gives the whole block a moment to breathe. She didn't do anything dramatic. She was simply present, rooted in peace, and that peace began to ripple out. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, conquering yourself is greater than winning 1,000 battles. Why? Because someone who has mastered their own mind can influence the world without saying a word. You see, our minds are naturally connected. They resonate with each other. If someone walks in carrying anger, the room tenses up. But if someone walks in with stillness, it becomes a quiet refuge for others to return to. A noisy child doesn't need you to yell. They need you to sit, meet their eyes, and be fully present. A friend in crisis doesn't need you to fix them. They need someone who won't judge or preach just, someone who's there. That right there is the deepest form of mindfulness. The world doesn't lack opinions, advice, or noise. What it lacks is people willing to pause, breathe, listen, and walk with a mindful heart. Mindfulness isn't just a personal practice. It's a way of preserving peace for everyone around us. Like a small candle quietly lighting the room without needing to shout, I am the light. At a winter retreat in California, a young participant once said, I used to think I had to stand out to be worthy. But after just a few days of eating mindfully, washing dishes in silence, and walking slowly with others, I realized my deepest value comes not from being impressive, but from being present and not adding more suffering to anyone. Someone once asked, can my inner peace really help this chaotic world? The answer is yes. Absolutely. When you can stay calm inside, you don't lash out at the people you love. You don't fuel online debates with more division. You don't feed the collective fear, jealousy, or anger that's spreading like wildfire. Instead, you become an anchor, a soft place, a space where others feel safe to take off the masks they're tired of wearing. You don't need to become a Dharma teacher. Just be someone who walks, speaks, and listens with awareness. Just master yourself and you're already helping the world heal. Remember, peace isn't the reward after you finish your practice. Peace is the gift you offer every time you slow down and show up fully. And once you realize that, the path ahead no longer feels like a race. It becomes a homecoming gentle, meaningful, real. And if you're still here, listening all the way to this moment, then maybe, just maybe, you've felt it too. This wasn't a lecture, not a lesson in high philosophy, but something much closer to home, like a cup of tea cooling on your table, or a quiet glance shared with someone you love. The Dharma isn't far away. It lives in your breath, your thoughts, your small choice every single day. You don't need to change the whole world. Just be truly present with yourself, and that's where peace begins. Let me end with this gentle reminder. Compassion doesn't mean letting others walk over you. It means standing steady in a storm and still keeping your heart open. Letting go doesn't mean losing something. It means no longer clinging to what was never truly yours. And mindfulness is the most generous gift you can offer the world. If this message touched something in your heart, I warmly invite you to subscribe to Buddhism Seeds so you won't miss future insights from the Buddha's timeless teachings. Please like this video if it brought you peace, share it with someone who might need a gentle reminder today, and leave a comment below about something you're learning to let go of or a moment of mindfulness you've experienced recently. Because maybe, just maybe, your story will be the light someone else was waiting for. May you walk in mindfulness and be a peaceful refuge for yourself and for the ones you love.